Well, hello, everybody. Tom here. I hope I find you well. Welcome to the fifth week of the Qnity Financial Roundtable for Schools. And yeah, schools are a big part of the professional beauty and wellness ecosystem. And this is an opportunity to spend some time talking about financial related issues and opportunities that relate with schools. Mirrored after the financial roundtable we do for salons and spas, which was 2 hours ago. This is dated. On the bottom it says week 47. We actually did week 49, and next week will be our 50th week, but this is only week 5 to spend time with you guys, and I'm very excited about today. Money's not the most important thing in life, but it is like oxygen on the gotta have it scale. So thanks for joining us today to address some of the financial related topics, concerns, et cetera, and build community around it. I want to thank Pivot Point for helping to sponsor and getting these roundtables kicked off. Big shout out to Pivot Point and their great contribution as partners to us and the beauty industry, and their passionate intent just to make the world a better place. I know that sounds so passé, but the reality is everybody I've met at Pivot Point is so committed and so on top of things that it's just a joy. So anyway, thank you for sponsoring with us, Pivot Point. Also, Jared Sanders of Lightheart Sanders joined us as a sponsor last week, and Jared's doing a great job working with, I don't know how many schools, it's over 100 schools, and he's very passionate about doing a benchmark project, which I want to support. All right, some of the things we'll go through today, we went through earlier this morning, some really great topics we'll cover shortly. We're building on a brain trust. The brain trust is individuals that are willing to share their reality for the benefit of all of us. We had some great contributions last week. We opened up the mic and had Alcott, we had Jared, we had, just so many, Nicole. We had several different people contributing last week. To kick things off, we had Susan, Nicole, and Linnell, and they did a great job of starting us off. And this name, Qnity, kept coming up every time I talked to Susan Heisey. And so Carrie has agreed to join us today as a guest. We'll get to that in a little bit here. So we're always looking for light bulb moments here. Hopefully you have at least one light bulb moment today. We think you'll have many. We do have certain methodologies at Qnity that I want to share with you. One of them is called 5 functions. And this is how we break the business down into 5 functional areas and create research, create metrics, create ideas based upon each of these different functions. Certainly finance is the main function we go through in these roundtables, but one of the things that we learn and know is that you can't move one arm of the business without all the other arms of the business moving too. So they're all interrelated. We will be spending a fair amount of time today talking about human capital. And last week, we went through the topic of agility, had a great conversation about agility. It's a really great word. For me personally, I was using the word pivot all the time, pivot, pivot, pivot. I was done pivoting. And I really like the word agility because I think that's what we need today. And if there's an area we need agility today, that has to do with the workforce and human capital. And so we're certainly going to cover that today. Last week, we also talked about the importance of a mid-year check-in as school owners and leaders. Is what are you doing proactively in the second half of the year? Do you have a budget? Do you have a plan? What are your key initiatives? If you have any ideas around that, throw it in the chat. Speaking to the chat, use the chat. We want to hear from you. Want to get more people into the conversation. So don't be shy. Don't be afraid. Send me a message. Aaron is here also to help coordinate and to give people the mic if they raise their hand. All right, let's do this. There's a couple of articles that I want to share with you and then turn them into conversation, starting with Carrie. And it happens to do with something called whole human development. But before we do that, I'm going to stop sharing the screen and say hi to Carrie. There you are. Hi, Carrie.
Hi, Tom. How are you?
Good. It's great to see you. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, my pleasure.
Tell us a little bit about yourself other than something I already know about you. that I did a little bit of research on you. We do have something in common. We both love the same pie, which is key lime pie, right?
Absolutely. I
Now you're
love
like, now where'd you come up with that random? That's the benefit of the internet, Carrie. Your interview is live and into the public in terms of things you love and all that. So it was a great opportunity to see you and see you interviewed by your team. Your name first came up when I talked to Susan, and she kept bringing up your name, and she gave you a ton of credit right at the beginning of the pandemic for how quick you were able to set up like Microsoft Teams. And oh, I mean, it sounds, and I said, I asked Susan at the time, this was back in May.
Mm.
This was 14 months later. And I asked Susan, I said, who have you told about these extraordinary accomplishments? And she said, no one ever asked. Well, I'm glad I asked. So anyway, I hear you're very smart. I hear that you're a great director, and I'm so glad you spent some time. So just a little bit about where you work, what you do, and then let's get into our conversation. Okay.
Okay, that's great. Well, thank you. That's very generous of both Susan and you. So I've been with the Institute for 9 years. I've always done higher education. So I've always been with adult learners, even previous to my time with the Institute. So I started in continued education and with another college, and managed that department, and also helped with their high school enrollment and admissions enrollment through our pre-college program. And I came here from Texas, and I came and graduated from school right at the time of the market crash. So I was very much wanting to find a really great job, and I knew it would always be in a college setting. It was very impactful for me. So fast forward 5 years after graduation, and I used to get my hair done at the Institute, and they needed some new team members, and I was referred to go and apply, and I've been here ever since. And I've grown from, my first job at the Institute was academic advisor, and then I went into their admissions department and became their lead admissions person. And then in 2017, I became the director of both schools. So we have two campuses, one in Milwaukee and one in Madison.
You're the perfect person for me to talk to. And so I love that. I love your background and your commitment. So let me share with you an article, and this is not just with you, but this is with all of our participants. And each week, this is a great pause for me personally, do a little research, see what's going on. This is an article by Inc. magazine. It's called "Everybody Wins When Leadership Focuses on Whole Human Development." Why leaders need to stop thinking about employees as assets and start working on a more holistic approach to development. A few more things, and I did just pass this article on to you, but employees are your greatest assets, and that phrase is right up there with low-hanging fruit and think outside the box as maybe being overused. And so what this article does, and the conversation I'm starting with you and hopefully other people today, is does anybody really want their employees to be considered an asset? And are we commoditizing people? And looking at frameworks for more fulfilled humans naturally, and they'll become motivated, innovative, and productive employees. And you asked me before we're talking today, is this for students or staff? Let's keep it on staff today. All right, certainly. And so it's about focusing on things that benefit the entire person and best practice. Now, I certainly have my own points of view on this, but I get to have a lot of different airtime. You don't. I think they'd rather hear from you than me. How do you react to that article and that whole idea about looking at the whole human? And do you relate with it? And how, in you and your business, might you address that?
Absolutely. So I was reading that article. I really felt that, I guess what stuck out to me was just almost the whole human development, not just the task and what someone needs to do their job well, but then also our commitment as leaders, in the Institute, to also help them grow and develop within their role. And that's not just training on how to be a good admissions person or a great instructor, but it also is about how to interact and with students and team members. I mean, even just yesterday, I was meeting with one of our team, and we were going through fierce conversations because she had a situation where not only did she had to have this tough conversation with a student, but then she was feeling like she didn't know how to communicate to some of her team. And so we talked about, hey, what does this look like to have a really hard conversation with someone you work with? And how do we have that conversation that is going to develop a productive result, right? And I'm finding that a lot of my team members, they might be really great at some things and then need help to grow both emotionally and professionally in other ways. And so sometimes my job is to kind of listen to them and help them navigate that so they become better professionals, better team members, and hopefully they have some equity now that will allow them to be more invested in their role because they have solutions on how do I handle these conversations. I find that people want to leave their jobs when they don't know how to move forward. And
Mm.
so my goal is really helping them understand, what does the future look like? And so I don't know, I was kind of going all over, but I do believe that, when it comes to whole human development, the United Nations actually has an article around this that they talk about. It's not economic growth is a means to human development. It's a part of it, right? It's not the whole thing. It's really about opportunities and choices. And so how do we provide opportunity and choices to our team to help them grow in their own professional development? That's something that I think our team is always seeking and trying to figure out what does that mean for individual team members to make them more successful in their role.
You strike me as someone that is able, and I don't know you very well, but you strike me as someone that really understands the balance between the head and the heart, and how the heart really is part of a conversation with team members, but it's also a business to run. And there's a head. So balancing the head and heart, is that something that resonates with you as you approach conversations?
Yeah, I think you probably hear this. This came up a lot in the last couple of years. It was like love your job or hashtag job love, right? And I think sometimes people felt like I have to love my job. But there was, for someone that's newer to your team, how do you help them grow to love their job? It doesn't just happen day one. Because if they feel like I have to love this on day one, they're going to look at all the barriers that will be in the way for them to achieve that type of relational feeling with their job.
Mm.
And that immediately, I think, sets people up to fall a little bit. And so, really, my goal is when I think about the heart, is really how do I connect people to the purpose and the passion of why it is important for them and how they play a role in helping our students be successful, but also letting them come back with some, self-worth about the work that they're doing as well and why that's important. If people don't connect that becomes really hard for them to continue to do it.
So I think we all know that we need many, many salons out there need staff, and we need more enrollments. We need, there's a full on like labor shortage for licensed professionals. My new insight, and as the later parts of the pandemic has come real, we have risk of having a full-on labor shortage, not just for students, but all positions. And it used to, during the pandemic, was like people were hungry. Some might argue with that, but you can make more money at Taco Bell right now than some of the positions we're looking at in the functional parts of our business. How are you doing right now with finding staff, whether it's instructors or more part of the back office, admissions, whatever? How is it working for you finding staff right now? Is it
Well,
tough?
yeah, I mean, so it's I have two feelings on this. And one is, we've been fortunate enough to have team members that have been with us 16, 20 years, very just grounded in the work that they do. And then we have people that are starting within 1 year and in 2 years and 3 years. And then we have a little bit of the turnover. I think one thing that I really, I feel it as well as I think everyone else on this call, opportunity right now, people are looking at change. That's like Everyone was stuck at home. Everyone had to think about, is this what I really want to do, right? And I think what's unique about the school industry always was that our educators always had the ability to just, if they wanted to quit, they could quit and start working at a salon and spa right away. You know, that pivot or transition was always there. And so I think, you know, from a perspective of leadership, knowing that that was always a possibility, it really helped structure the way that we think about transition. You know, and of course, there's things like we really ask people to not be disruptive for the class, stay on with the class. I think your relationship really is determined. Like, if you ever want to know how well or how liked or whatever you want to use in that term, how much a person feels connected to their job, it's about how much notice they'll give you. So I've been blessed, and we have, knock on wood, right, to have people give us 6 months, 3 months notice, and that really helps, right? But we have those conversations up front where we'll say, you know, hey, it takes a while to get someone trained and up and going. We want to, you know, put everyone in a successful position. Give us as much notice as possible. On the flip side, I think something that we've been doing a lot of, and more so trying to figure out, is succession planning for changes. And in order to do succession planning, meaning if I were to win the lottery, win $1 billion, who would become the next director, right? And the very first thing I have to do as a leader is to go back and say, you know, who on my team wants this job? You know, we always know who would do really well at it, or we might think, oh, this person has the acumen to do it, but do they want that position? And really, at the end of the day, it's understanding, and I think you kind of spoke about this in previous sessions, understanding your org chart, but then also, how does your new team member or any team member know how they can advance or grow? And do you know if your growth plans for that person matches their own career goals? And so that comes into having conversations.
You have few nuggets I want to jump in on here. First of all, you hit on something most people don't talk about, and that is giving notice, because it's huge disruption when someone leaves your team.
Right.
But the disruption is magnified quantumly if it's very short term. I could think of 2 examples from last week on this. One has to do with a business in Atlanta, and they were given like 1 week notice that their person they outsourced their finance function to was taking another job. 1 week notice, finance function. And then someone else, that a contractor we work with, gave us like, hey, I'm raising my rates starting like right now. And it's one thing to lose someone. It's another thing to lose someone in a very disruptive way, short notice. So that's and I'd love to get some chats going here and have people raise their hand. So shout out to you to really call that out, and it's something to communicate clearly. Hey, if you are going to leave, we understand that. One of the things that we like to follow at this company is we need as much notice as possible to set up our students for success. Mm-hmm. The other piece that you mentioned that's, and this is the thing I love about these calls, everybody gets to witness curiosity, and I'm totally curious about what you say. You mentioned succession plan, and typically succession plan is a term that's used when it creates the business, like a transition ownership. You're using that term like succeed, replace you, you know, so you're sort of internal succession plan. I love both of these, and shout out to you. All right, I want to move the conversation. Mm-hmm. All right, but we're going to come back to this whole human development. All right, and there's another article that really struck me, and I'm sure many of you are going to relate with this. This is an article by the American Institute of CPAs. All right, younger Americans bearing the brunt of pandemic financial stress. And what this article says is young adults are 3 times more likely to experience pandemic-related financial stress. 9 in 10 young adults have experienced stress about their financial situation, say it has a negative impact on their mental well-being. And here's a quote from the article: "Financial stress at any age can have a negative impact on a person's well-being. For many younger Americans, this is the first time they've experienced this level of economic uncertainty, whereas older generations have already lived through recessions and depression." And then it goes on to talk about different solutions and what have you. And it also suggests other things such as how financial stress relates with people's personal life. So how do you react to this? How do you react to this article? I think you've got a personal story around this too, don't you?
Yeah, absolutely. I graduated college in 2007. I came to Wisconsin from Texas, and I remember when the housing market crashed, right? It was big and scary for anyone that was a senior in college trying to find a job, because really unemployment was high and the news was dire, and there wasn't jobs. And so I remember feeling so grateful to just have a job at one. And then I felt, honestly, I stuck with, I really believe my career path was shaped by my fear of not being employed. And it started me on this pathway. And I'm so grateful for where it led me, for sure. It became all positive things. But I remember that real fear of being like, I can't have a job, right? I think what's interesting about today's student, and I'm really curious to hear from others about the conversations your students are having. On one side, we're having kind of the opposite effect, where salons and spas are desperately needing graduate students, right? Students that complete our program. But I found that a lot of students that went through school during the pandemic have a higher lack of confidence in their skills. And that's partly, I think, less people were coming in. Maybe they had to do a lot of things online. People don't know what they don't know. And the only thing they do know is that their experience was different, right? And so there is a level of, I think, when I see that financial fear, which of course that's a whole market of students, not just beauty schools or even trade schools. But I do think that there's a level of uncertainty and unknown. We know stress comes from the unknown. And, I think, was it Stephanie Jackson Fox was on, and I've heard her speak in past conversations. And I think people that hire and do hire well, whether that's independents or salons or spas, it's the people that are able to truly communicate what a career might look like for them. And I think a lot of stress is coming from the unknown. I don't know if that's true for everyone. I'm curious if that's on par with what you're seeing in other schools, but I know for us, the immediate graduates was a lack of confidence, which led to their stress.
You made me think about something, and the fear of the unknown and how big that is. And let me give you an example to validate your point and where we see that in a salon environment. So, Carrie, if I had a nickel for every time a salon or spa employee didn't understand their paycheck or their pay system, then you and I would be buying pallets of key lime pie. All right. There is, and so many compensation systems are so complicated that go into the workforce and they don't literally understand how they're paid. And in many cases, there's multiple levels, there's service charges, there's, all different things that go into it. And I really feel that a lot of people leave very good companies just because they don't understand how they're paid. And it creates a fear, and it also creates a trust issue between employer and employee, when basically everybody's intentions were great. So I totally believe that a fear of finances, I see it play out in the salon environment. So you really got me thinking about that.
Yeah, I mean, I think what's been different, I haven't put any study or anything against this, it's just a gut feeling, but a lot of schools, whether they chose to accept it or not, the government gave out her funds, right? So it's interesting that there's this article about fear and stress of finance when this group of students have the potential to actually get government funding because of the stress of COVID, right? I think really, if I were to talk once to our students, it's really for them the fear of being successful in their future employment. And I see that in other realms too. When we hire admin or marketing people, they have a really strong desire to be paired up with a job that they're going to learn from and feel like they're going to grow professionally. And then we hear that from students as well. They really are, the word training program is so overused. They want to know, what does that actually mean? What does that actually look like? But the wake-up call is what a training program is and what income you're going to get, right, during that time. And so I completely agree. It's once again, you don't know what you don't know. And it doesn't matter how many times we try to tell them, an experience sometimes outweighs that. So yeah, I don't know. I hope that kind of helps. It's kind
Yeah.
of my gut feeling.
So, so let's stay with human capital a little bit. And do you have any like tried and true little tips that you have to relate with finding really good staff, whether it's instructors or putting you on the spot here? And you can certainly take let me think about that, and I'll invite you back another week. But is there any, I mean, you have such great, strong business practices, and we've got a very active audience, and you've got a platform in front of all of us here, and you're with your peers. Any good nuggets as it relates to finding really good staff right now?
Well, I think one is, we've been privileged enough to be in school for 25 years. So we have 25, 26 years.
Mm-hmm.
And so we have kind of that foundation. So a lot of people know about us, which is great. I think the one thing we try to always do is we look back at our alumni, we look at team members, and I'll say right away, I'll be like, hey, who do you want to work with? Invite someone, a peer, or someone that you work with. And what's great about asking our team too, like, who are you interested in working with? Do you know anybody that you'd recommend? They're going to be the first ones that are probably going to recommend people that can handle the environment and like would fit well with the culture. Because they're going to be working with them too, right? No one wants to say, come work with me, and then that person hates the job, right? Everyone wants to recommend people that are going to be a good fit. So I think that to me is, just like with students, we know our strongest referrals are people from alumni. It's the same way. And then one thing I think has been a huge benefit for us is our instructor training program. The state of Wisconsin doesn't require a license anymore to be an instructor. And it was so funny because we started that program, we got it accepted by NACIS the year they deregulated that as a license. So my first thought was, oh, this is just not going to work. No one's going to want to come to a program that you don't need a license for. What we have found is that has actually been an excellent recruitment tool for us, because a lot of the people that go through that program are looking to work at a school, and we're able to see how they are in class. We're able to see if they're going to be a great educator. And, we definitely invite them to look at even teaching at our school. And I find that a lot of people, we've found a lot of success in that, and some long-term team members that joined our team, meaning that they've been for, a year to 2 years to 3 years. They're making that commitment to be on our team for a long run, and have probably been our most successful because they've had kind of an extended training program. So it's been really, really lucrative, and in the ability to get and retain good team members. So I think that is probably our best practice right now.
I am absolutely loving that. And I want to invite members of this group. Is there anybody else, first of all, do you love this conversation? And in particular, I'm totally into the instructor training. I could totally see that as a recruitment and retention tool. So let's hear some feedback on this. Give Carrie a little bit of a shout out as well as questions. And I'd love to see someone raise their hand. All you got to do is raise your hand if you want to enter the conversation, and we'll keep it primarily around staff. And human development. So raise your hand, Alcott, Ann, Bobby, Caitlin. I see you guys out there. Can't actually literally see you, but I know there's wisdom. Justin, Kevin, Leon, feel free to raise your hand and jump into the conversation. I gotta think. All right, so Caitlin loves the instructor program, and while we wait for someone to raise their hand before I just give one of them the mic, which I've been known to do, tell us a little bit more about your instructor training program, okay? Give us
Yeah.
just the basic structure of it in a nutshell.
Yeah, our instructor training program is a 150-hour training program. So we do it on Mondays, and it's a hybrid program. We've been able to do all of the theory online, and then when they have to do instructor training hours where they have to actually observe, they just come back into the school and observe our classes. Right? It's pretty easy. They can choose to observe another school, and that's fine as well. But they're going through curriculum development, presentation skills. Now we've added a hybrid portion of it. So how to teach online versus just in the classroom. They're learning about coaching and conversation and communication, documentation. Honestly, all those things you need at a base level to be, a great educator. And so it really, I found that if I hired two people, if one went through the instructor training program and one did not, the person that went through the instructor training program grasps the teaching aspect of their job really quickly, even if they were at a same talent level. They're just a little bit more confident. They're able to jump in a lot. And it's just because they've had a little bit more practice as a student to become a teacher, right? So that's been really great. And it's additional revenue to come into the school. I mean, that's a huge part too. So it is totally a win-win, and definitely something that was a kind of happy circumstance for us, that we realized, hey, this program, it totally is great. In addition to that, it's not just cosmetology, it's aesthetics and massage. So I'm able to really get not one type of teacher. I'm able to kind of go across the gamut and give people, or see potential future educators.
Yeah.
And it's been great. We've hired in all domains from that program.
So it sounds like it amounts to almost, it's about 4 weeks, isn't it? It's about 4 weeks of training spread out over a period of Mondays. Yeah.
Yeah, it's about, it's a little bit more than that because it's a shorter program. So we do about 15 weeks, but it's also, about 4 to 6 weeks of actual theory. And then everything else is just hands-on, which is observation and co-teaching.
Yeah, I'd love to see if anybody else has a structured instructor training program like this. Raise your hand. And then also we've got someone here. Okay. Chris says, with the advent of more hybrid classes, especially in industry, do you find that you're needing to train more on technology in addition to how we teach a class? Thank you, Chris. Great question. Take it away, Carrie.
Oh, absolutely. I think technology has completely restructured even how we engage with the students. So you have to train to that. I think the other thing is, I found, I don't know if you guys have found this, I'm really curious and I'm looking for best practices. I have found that I might put someone in the classroom really quickly, but I might not immediately put them on screen. There's definitely a difference with that person's ability level to engage a class and also be technologically savvy enough to run the program online, whether you're doing Teams or something like that. I mean, we learned that, I think everybody learned that during the pandemic, but because we've had really great, successful educators, what's happened now is part of our training program is they observe both online and in the classroom, and then they co-teach both online and in the classroom. So it's now just a little bit more of showing them how, and then giving them the opportunity with the safety net of being with someone else.
How many instructors do you have?
Between two schools, I have 47 instructors. And then and we have 7 programs, so that's what makes us a little bit different than other schools. We have cosmetology, barbering, aesthetics, Ayurveda, aesthetics, massage therapy, manicuring, and then the instructor program. And then we have also advanced programming online and in person. So we do a lot of different types of education for sure.
Perfect. Are you looking for ways to help develop your instructors?
Yeah, absolutely. Always. I mean, we are definitely looking for, I think, there's those things like coaching and giving feedback, which is always important. It's something that our instructors always want to learn from, and they want tools to be able to have those hard conversations. I think mental health has been a huge piece for students. And I think educators are looking for ways to I have students with mental health concerns. How do I handle that when I have 15 to 20 other students in my class, right? So there's that behavioral part of training. And then on top of that, it's keeping up with the technical aspect, which this past year we had tons of training. So, yeah.
Justin says, thank you, Justin, for your comment. Our state, which is Pennsylvania, still requires an instructor license, so we offer an instructor training course, 500-hour requirement here. Probably half of their current instructor staff is a graduate of their instructor program. Great. Thank Justin. I appreciate you weighing in there. Let's move over to, I'm just going to explore one more area with you. Then I've got something for you. I got a little surprise for you, something we're going to do for you. Aaron doesn't even know about this yet, so I'm going to go rogue. The finance function. Susan tells me you've got a really, really good finance director. Are you very involved in the finance part of the business?
Yeah, I mean, yes and no. I mean, we do quarterly reports, so I get to see them. Of course, we talk about areas of need and development within different line items. So we look at that and make adjustments. And then we have different departments, like for our institute, we have different departments. And I know, like, for example, operations and marketing and things like that, we keep a really tight eye on that for sure. So I'm definitely a part of those conversations, and I work closely with Melanie. So I guess yes. I don't know. Yeah, I do.
All right, gotcha. So have you ever heard of the Q Life Map?
Briefly, but I haven't seen it.
Okay, all right. I am going to, you've been very generous with your time today. And when I read this article, all right, here's the article, everybody. All right. And everybody wins when leadership focuses on whole human development. And I read that, as I was reading that article, it struck me that it was focus on factors that benefit the entire person. Okay. And they list physical, spiritual, professional. I'm like, holy cow, that's our life map. All right. Mm-hmm. So let me grab something here. So we have a tool, and it's literally called a life map. And it's a 13 by 19, and it breaks your life down into 5 areas. It breaks your life down into, there is financial, there's physical, professional, relational, and spiritual. And it's a vision board on steroids, because what we do is we furnish adhesive images that allow people to visually represent what their hopes and dreams look like. But we also call it a vision board more on steroids because it's more of a whole brain tool. In addition, most vision boards, you just do pictures. You get magazines and glue, and it's messy, and you create this vision board. It ends up being too large, and it sits off in a room as opposed to something you carry with you every day. The other thing that I think is a challenge with a lot of vision boards, it doesn't force you to get clarity by setting text-based goals. So what this tool does is it allows you to pick images. For example, these are images of what financial success look like to me as an instructor. And this is a micro goal I can set for myself. Anyway, so what I'd like to do is I'd like to lead not me, I'm not the best educator on this, but we would like to lead a member of your instructor group through this life map because it's doing exactly what I think you want to do with your team. So we will consider this to be a gift for you helping us today.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
And what'll happen is it'll inspire your instructors. It will reinforce what you guys are already doing so well with this holistic approach and looking at their life. So Aaron will take care of you. We will do this complimentary. We'll do a group of your instructors. We can deal with all the specifics later. We can normally, Aaron, you can type in the chat, usually 45 to 60 minutes is how long this takes. So it's very digestible in a meeting. And your group is going to feel connected with each other. But more importantly, they're going to be, connected with all these parts of their life. All right. Would you like to accept this offer?
Oh, absolutely. I love education.
All right. So we will we'll take care of you on that. Thank you for being our guest today. Amazing. And come on next week too, because I'm actually going to be away next week. We're going to have a guest host, and we'd love to get you to participate next week. And you can be more in the wings, but I do want to officially award you the $1 million light bulb. So you're officially a member of the Brain Trust, and let's give you a virtual applause. Carrie, thanks so much for sharing with us today. All right.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
And the great work that you do. All right. Let's see what else we have going on here. We got a great group today. Great group of owners of which and managers of which we're going to get many of you more and more involved. I love your blue glasses, by the way. And let's see what else we need to cover here before we wrap up. I know time is important to all of you today. We went through both of these articles. Yeah, this whole thing about younger Americans bearing the brunt of pandemic stress. We'll be talking about that much more in future sessions about bringing money-related skills to the next generation of graduates. Money skills that will match their art and heart. And so certainly it's an area of great passion for all of us at Qnity. And when I see an article like this, my heart goes out to how can we change the trajectory of a student or an employee's life through helping to remove some of this financial stress? To me, a lot of it deals with, as Carrie said so well, the unknown. And that's where education is so important. So anyway, love that. In next week's session, it'll be a little bit more clubhouse style. We're going to get other people to weigh in next week. I've awarded the $1 million light bulb to Carrie already. This life map, if it's something you're interested in, you can reach out to us. It's a very simple tool. It's a simple kit. We just send it out to you, and then we remotely will have a life map leader that will help take you and your team through it. So if you're interested, you could send a message to Aaron. It breaks the life down into financial, physical, professional, relational, and spiritual. We have done this program for many, many years. Everybody loves it. We've actually brought it to other industries. And if we can help you as a school to better bond your team through something like this, we're happy to do it. All right, guys, I see it is 45 minutes after the hour. I like to keep these ideally between 45 and 55 minutes max. All progress starts when you tell the truth. Carrie, thanks for sharing your truth with us today. Hope you guys got some good ideas this week. Next week, again, we will be on at the same time. We'll have a guest host. Aaron will be one of our guest hosts. I'm going to be out on a project next week, but thanks for joining us today. If anybody has any final comments, go for it. Otherwise, we appreciate you joining us today. Hope you have a good week and hope you learned something. And thanks for being part of the community. Bye now.